Hey guys! Today I am back with another movie review for you all. Now before I start this movie review, I just want to quickly mention something that is really important. My friend Mary has recently just started her own blog. It's amazing. She talks about lifestyle, she talks about books, she talks about just living life and comfort, and she also talks about women and feminism, stuff like that. And she did a little interview with little old me recently, and that's on there, and her blog is just really amazing. She makes some absolutely quality posts about stuff including skincare and being comfortable with yourself and stuff like that, and fashion. And I just really want to implore you guys to follow her, check out her blog, and give it a go, because she is literally my best friend and I love her, and I think her blog is quality stuff, and I think you will also think that if you go and check her out. So please do. The link will be, of course, in the description below, and I'll put a little link here as well, just so you know, if you guys want to check it out now, you can leave my video, I don't care. But if you guys want to stick around, we'll be talking about The Legend of Tarzan today, directed by David Yates and starring Alexander Skarsgård, Margot Robbie, Samuel L. Jackson and Christoph Waltz. So without further ado, let's get reviewing. Now this movie centres around the life of Tarzan after he has left his life in the jungle, so it's way after the Tarzan story that we all know, and he is having to return years later to his sort of home ground after it's discovered that there are some sort of suspicious activities going on at the hands of this guy called Leon Rom, who is played by Christoph Waltz. So yeah, this movie takes on a different part of Tarzan's life than viewers of the cartoon might be used to. And of course, that makes an interesting case for this movie because it is something different. It's not just replicating the cartoon like other sort of Disney applications have, which is interesting. Now, I will say that I have personal issues with David Yates as a director, and that's purely because of his involvement in the final Harry Potter movies. I was not a fan of them. I was a huge fan of the books, and I don't think he adapted them in the best way. So I kind of have like beef with David Yates, but at the same time you can't deny that he creates some fantastic feel-good action and adventure movies. I think that's what he's best at, and I think Tarzan, The Legend of Tarzan, was no different. I thought it was definitely an enjoyable movie, and the naturalistic setting of his return to the Congo in Africa provided for some absolutely beautiful cinematography. Of that there is no doubt. And of course we get some brilliant, really exhilarating, really intense action sequences with faces off between the gorillas and Tarzan, which is really cool. To see his interactions with the animals on a sort of live action scale is really thrilling, and I thought that those sequences were done particularly well. Visually, I also thought that Alexander Skarsgård was brilliant for the role of Tarzan. It really did look like him. He was perfect, you know. He certainly had the right build for Tarzan. He was very athletic, very powerful looking, and I thought that, you know, basically the exact visual representation that you'd have in your head if you were thinking of Tarzan as a live action person rather than what we're used to with the infamous Disney cartoon. But I do feel as though the film was slightly one-dimensional, especially the acting. Even the relationship between Jane and Tarzan fell kind of flat for me. Like, there was romance and there was a bit of passion, and there was a bit of her, you know, talking about how he was sort of going to return to his old ways and get in touch with his animal side once again. But I still felt like it was kind of a bit, I don't know, kind of flatlined for me. But that's just my opinion. I don't think there was anything particularly special about the actors' chemistry. You know, visually it was nice, and it was kind of just standard, to be honest. But Tarzan and Jane, it was kind of boring in a way. I don't want to be harsh or be mean, but their sort of romance took up as, you know, a decent part of the movie. It was quite a central role to it, since she followed him in his journey back to the Congo, back to his roots, and it was kind of a bit lackluster for me. But that's just my opinion, and that's totally fine. It might completely differ to yours, and that's okay. Um, I love Margot Robbie. I absolutely adore her. I think she's a great actress, but there was something in this film with her performance that felt kind of cheesy. And that, it pains me to say that, because she is a brilliant actress. She proved that in The Wolf of Wall Street, and she proved that in Suicide Squad as well. I thought her performance as Harley Quinn was amazing, but Jane felt kind of cheesy. Like, the deliverance of the lines kind of stood out in a bad way to me. They kind of felt like, I don't know, almost cartoonish. It was weird. You know, she was a good sort of love interest, and she was a good heroine in her own way. She wasn't too passive, but she was also really sort of, oh, I don't know, I just felt like the lines felt incredibly forced. And it felt watching almost as if Margot Robbie knew that this wasn't going to be, you know, a serious Oscar winning picture, and she just kind of didn't give it her all. And that's kind of sad. I mean, there were certain scenes where I felt were better than others, like the dinner scene with Christoph Waltz, which was, you know, quite, you know, low energy, and it was quite subtle and quite intense, which I thought was really good. But then she would, in the action sequences, return to her ways of sort of delivering lines in quite a cheesy manner, and I thought that was a little bit upsetting. But anyway, again, that's just my opinion. Sorry, Margot, you're still a great actress. It was just like not for me in this film, unfortunately. Christoph Waltz, on the other hand, we all know that I love Christoph Waltz. It's no shock, okay, at this point. But I do think he stood out in this movie, and that's not me being biased, I promise. But I don't know, it did feel like his performance as the villain was great. Being the villain is typically what he's very good at. What we've seen of him in Inglourious Basterds and Spectre, he's a great baddie. And I think his performance in this really shone. He was that kind of insidious villain with a smile, and he really was sort of that soft-spoken villain that tried to sort of pass everything off like he was doing everything right, but then he would snap into a moment of action and just sort of with his little rosary beads that he used, they were like his weapon of choice that he would just sort of use to totally like smite the other characters down in his own way. And that kind of creepy sort of, I don't know how to explain it, but it was a brilliant performance by him yet again. I thought he was fantastic, as per usual. I swear that's not me being biased. He's genuinely good in everything at this point. I think we all know that. He was insidious, he was sinister, he was, you know, that perfect balance of creepy that we all love about Christoph. He's the villain that you love to hate, and that was no different in this movie. But yeah, I definitely think that his performance was great, and we saw a lot more of him than we perhaps saw in Spectre, which was nice. We saw his character a lot more, and that allowed us to sort of develop our feelings of hatred towards him, perhaps better than have been in previous films where he's appeared as the villain. So it was good. I loved his performance personally. I do think overall that this movie was perhaps not the best, most well-rounded movie, apart from the sort of flat sort of acting from some of the cast. There were also moments of CGI where I was kind of like, oh, that doesn't look quite right. But most of the time, the sequences did look fantastic, and I really enjoyed them. I think that's really what this film was. It was just enjoyable. It was fun for the viewer. I think this isn't a film that you are supposed to take seriously, and you shouldn't. I don't think you should really be like, oh, take it down too harshly, because this is just one of those action and adventure films that is, a relief film. I feel when I watched it, I had fun, and I think that is something you can definitely attribute to this movie. You'd have a great time watching it. And there are sequences that are particularly thrilling, and they do catch your eye, and they do make you tense, and they do make you nervous, and I think it definitely succeeds in doing that. Whether it is actually a well-developed, memorable piece of cinema is totally different. It doesn't exactly break boundaries, but it's still a film that is enjoyable to watch. I enjoyed it, but of course it isn't a film that is, award-winning. But every movie doesn't have to be that for you to still like it and love it and enjoy it. And I've got friends that really, really love it, and that's great. And you shouldn't pander to critics to love something. You should love it for what it is. And I think, yeah, don't take this film too seriously. Enjoy it as a great action adventure film. And yeah, if I had to give this film a rating, I'd probably give it like 3 out of 5 stars, just because obviously it's not perfect, but it's not terrible either. I feel like it's a fine movie. It's fine. But it's definitely fun, and I would recommend watching it if you're a fan of the original Tarzan cartoon and you're willing to give this movie a go as well. If you're a sort of a fan of the sort of action adventure genre, I think it's perfect for you. So yeah, if you're interested in that, give this movie a try. It's definitely feel good, and I really enjoyed myself. So that is my take on The Legend of Tarzan. I hope you guys have enjoyed this movie review. You can always leave suggestions for movies for me to review below, or you can send me a message on my Tumblr. I don't mind. I hope I can, attend to those suggestions, and I hope to see you in the next review. Bye.